So before we finish up this last little bit of wood that we have here for 2020, just take a minute and show you some of the tools that I've made to make my life easier throughout the years of doing this. Every one of these you can buy at a local store near you, but I just like making things myself. It's relatively satisfying. Most of you know I work in a metal shop, so the availability of making these is pretty great. One of the tools I'm going to show you is store-bought, and I really do like the quality of it, and I'll show you that. So let's take a look at some of the things that it takes to process tree length firewood at home. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is this little thing right here. This is just a 35-pound, I believe, rare earth magnet with a bolt threaded into it and a piece of stainless steel TIG wire welded onto the bolt. I use this for a marker. My particular boiler takes 21-inch wood. This gauge is set up for 20-inch. That way I've got a little wiggle room. I just like to fill my boiler box as much as possible, so I have to fill it less times throughout the day. So I find this gives me good accurate cuts every time. And this simply just sticks to the side of the bar. It works out really good on this Husqvarna, is if I take this magnet and stick it on this bar and slide it into the dogs, you can see right here that it fits perfectly inside that dog and it doesn't roll out of place. One thing I do want to know is if you ever do make anything like this, make sure there's no paint on your bar down in there, because if there is, this magnet's going to walk all over and all the time you just spent sharpening them teeth is going to go down the drain. The next little item is pretty handy. This is a log vise for sharpening the saw. I happen to make this one out of all stainless steel. You can buy them on Amazon or your local Tractor Supply. They're usually red, cast iron. Again, I just find it relatively satisfying in making my own products. That just drives down into the wood. Piece of angle iron welded on there is a strike surface. That will hold the bar as we sharpen the chain. So this vise is gonna, you'd stick this right in the wood. I'm gonna take my Pickaroon, which happens to be another homemade little gem that I have. Okay, we'll drive that right down into the wood. Make sure it's seated well. So one more handy little device that I find to save myself a lot of walking is this little rubber mount. It's on there to hold your scrinch. I bought these from, I think, Bailey's online. You take the wraparound handle off your saw and it's all pre-cut. You slide that up there, take your scrinch, and you can put that down in there and it will store it while you're cutting. You never know when you're going to need it. I don't like leaving it in my back pocket because I have a tendency to hop in the skidder and sit on it, and then the screwdriver point will poke me in the leg. The way I set up mine, and I can't tell you whether factory ones are set up this way or not because I don't buy much for the realm of factory stuff, but the spark plug side of the scrinch. Well, this bolt is going to screw out so I can put my bar in it. So I'm going to tighten that up. Take my scrinch and lock that bar right into place. For me, and the way mine's set up, I got to be careful that this anvil on the back is not actually touching the tooth and preventing the chain from turning. So right now the chain spins freely. So if I had my file, which I don't have out here with me, I'll pretend with a wrench, you know, I could get on here and, you know, get all my filing done, whether it be my cutter teeth or filing down my depth gauges. But this little tool works out to be to my advantage quite a bit. It just saves some time of trying to hold everything tight between your knees while you're trying to file and keep everything from walking around. It gives you a good steady surface. So, take a little more bird's eye view of what that actually looks like. You can see that actually holds that bar in place really good while you're sharpening your chain. If I was going to sharpen my saw, I'd straddle this pile, get this, you know, right between my body, and I'd go ahead, file all my teeth, switch to the other side. This is where learning to go right-handed and left-handed comes in really handy. It'll save yourself a lot of time. You know, go through and get yourself touched up, and that's the way the log vise works. I got 3 more tools I'd like to run over real quick and talk with you folks about. So this here's a Pickaroon. I use this all the time, whether it's unloading the dump truck, when we do deliveries, or pulling wood off the pile. It's just a nice little 16-inch extension to my hand, so I don't have to bend over as far, and as I go down through this pile and cut stuff up, you know, I can just set the saw down and poke all these out of here real quick. The last thing, or second to last thing we'll talk about, is a pulp hook. I use the pulp hook and the Pickaroon together when I'm gonna move from a pile, and if I want to stack a pile of, you know, cordwood up off to the side to get ready for the wood splitter, instead of reaching down and grabbing them and scuffing your hands up. And I don't know about you, but when I grab too much wood on the end, I have a tendency to get a sore little muscle in there. So I'll take these two in tandem, and you can see as we get going on, but I'll spike one end of the round and I'll spike the other end of the round, and I can pick it up and carry it. This one here is made by Grippo. It's by far my favorite one that I've ever used for pulp hooks. It's got a slight little carbide tip here that's bent over. These stay sharp for so long. I've had this one for many years, and I've never had to do any work to it. I just keep driving it in wood and it keeps coming out. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is actually my camera stand right now, but I'll take the camera off in it and I'll show you the piece of equipment. So this little device here is a log dog. It's just simply a cant dog that's been modified, and yes, you can buy these, but no, this one's homemade. This started out life as a store-bought PV. Some of you may or may not know that a PV actually comes with a point on the end. I personally don't like the point. I like the cant dog style more so we cut the point off and we built this little plate to go on here. I'm pretty sure the store-bought ones come set up like this, but all we did was, you know, coped out a piece of pipe and then another piece of pipe and simply made a T-stand. So when I want to get a piece of log up off the ground to cut, so we're not cutting into the dirt and dulling our chain out and spending a whole bunch of extra time sharpening, this little tool has become super valuable in my operation, especially when I'm working alone or and I'm cutting off a pile. I don't have something up on the tractor forks elevated. This works great for me, and I'll set the camera up here and I'll show you how that works. Probably ought to move the saw before we do this so it doesn't come toppling down. But say this is going to be my first piece to cut, and I want to get all this mud and dirt. So I guess before we get started, I'll show you my little setup to hold my phone. We talked about a PV in comparison to a cant dog, and my phone camera stand actually right now is a PV. So we'll take a look at it. You can see the point on the end compared to the flat plate that we had. And all I simply do is figure out relatively what camera angle I want. And I think we're going to be pretty good right about here. And I'm just going to simply drive that right down into the ground. And I can get my phone set up on top of this and we can video a little wood cutting. But here on the pile, I have a tendency not to wear chaps. So totally recommended, wear chaps. Ear protection though, that's always a non-negotiable. You need ear protection. These things are loud. The noise from this will do a lot of damage to the hearing over time, so ear protection, definitely a non-negotiable. Alright, so we'll get started. Before we start this saw, we definitely want the brake on. That'll keep the chain from spinning.